Hey, hi. We're live. It's just Dubs. It's not Saturday
We're back.
morning. It's not Saturday morning. It's Monday evening, and we're getting ready for a little Giants baseball. Giants and Dodgers. I've been filling in for Greg Papa. Of course, we wish him all the best and a speedy recovery as he continues down his road toward a potential return here. It's JD. It's Kyle Har. And we're together here for the first time since the Warriors were eliminated in the play-in tournament, Kyle. I thought we were going to be doing this a couple of weeks sooner than we are, but here we are, all in one fell swoop. Steve Kerr returns. Didn't exactly look like that was going to be the case when we last spoke on April the 17th. And the Warriors get the 11th pick, which looked exactly like the way things were going to go when we last spoke on April the 17th. But alas, here we are. It is just Dubs, the first of our many off-season specials when big news hits. And we're just we're going live to see who's going to want to join us here on a Monday night for the Sports Leader on the YouTube and Twitter accounts.
Yeah, I think the Steve Kerr news prolonged a little bit longer than we thought. I think Monty Poole initially put out that it looked like things were heading where Steve Kerr wasn't going to return, but I mean you guys have touched on it throughout the weeks now that this thing has gone longer and longer, that the fact that it was taking this long maybe signaled that he was going to return, and here we are, and maybe Mike Silver and Greg Silver had something to do with it when they saw him at Oracle, and then with the 11th pick in the lottery, I was watching it on my phone at Oracle because I was there for the Mother's Day game, and a little anticlimactic. There were definitely some winners and losers, but Warriors stayed put. I know we'll dive into that a little bit later, but no, it was great.
So let's just get to it. Steve Kerr comes back. Didn't look like it was necessarily going to be the case. In fact, we kind of went through a lot on Dubs OT to finish the season. Will he or won't he? And really, from the moment at which Jonathan Kuminga was traded to Atlanta, I thought that Steve Kerr was in all likelihood going to return to the Warriors for at least next season. Now it winds up being a 2-year deal, but Steve, I don't want to say pump faked everybody, but he made everybody think that he was at least coming to grips with the notion that he would leave in the aftermath of the loss in Phoenix and the play-in, and of course the hug and the I love you guys and all of that with Steph and with Draymond. Was it a negotiation tactic? I don't know. I didn't really believe that's necessarily what it was. I thought Steve needed first and foremost to at least check the box that he wasn't burned out and just done with it all. And so, and I saw Anthony Slater report on this a little bit today on ESPN, and it was in line very much with everything that I had heard and what we had talked about on the Papa and Silver show when I've been filling in for Papa with Greg Silver. And it was the simple fact that the first box that needed to be checked was, did Steve want to return? And I think Steve took the time away to make sure that he was invigorated enough, or if he needed the separation to be able to calm himself down and remove himself from the heat of the battle and what was just an ugly end of a season after the Jimmy Butler injury and then the subsequent Steph Curry injury. So he first and foremost had to work his way through that. And then sort of the second step was the meeting with Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob, where the three would get on the same page in relationship to a lot of the things that were reported, which was, does Steve still have the fire for it? And then the internal discussions about where the organization wanted to go moving forward in terms of how they look to make the roster better. Is Steve Kerr comfortable with maybe some potential changes to his philosophy or changes to players that he would welcome into the mix and all of that? So they had to have some grown-up conversations, I think is probably the short and sweet way to put it. And once they got through the grown-up conversations, then the third week that it took for this thing to be resolved was basically the nuts and bolts of 1 year versus 2. What's the money going to look like? All the contractual agent and team BS that once everybody agreed that they wanted to proceed, still needed to get rounded into form. So for me, Steve gave everybody a good scare, at least those that didn't want to see him go. But I think regardless, and I said this today with Silver, I think Steve Kerr is the best coach for this team for the next couple of years, as long as Steph Curry is going to be on the team, regardless in my mind of whether or not they're competing for championships or they're just trying to figure out a way to bridge from this era to the next while they're being as good as they possibly can be. To me, Steve checks both those boxes. I never believed that Steve didn't want to coach a team that maybe was incapable of competing for a championship. I just think everybody needed to sort of put the rat on the table and address the elephant in the room and acknowledge the fact that hey, I can coach any team you want, but maybe we need to change some of the expectations or how we discuss internally what our ultimate goals are.
Yeah, and I thought kind of throughout the season that it was hard to imagine Steph Curry finishing his career with the Warriors without Steve Kerr as his head coach, and that may still be the case because he might be here longer than when Steve's contract ends, or if Steve hangs it up after 1 year. But I think for the most part, it was just hard to imagine Kerr leaving solely because, he understands how special it is and what a privilege it is to coach Steph especially. But I think it also signals, I think if they were going to do kind of like a pseudo rebuild, that they might have moved into a different direction. But I think it signals with Kerr coming back that it signals that they are trying to go all in this year and maybe the next and see how it goes from there.
Yeah, and I think the next part of it is exactly where you were going with it. It's to what level now that Steve Kerr is going to come back, will the organization be willing to look to do what it takes, maybe not to contend for championships, but there's a gap between where this team finished at 37-45 and as the 10 seed in the Western Conference and a top 4 team in the NBA that's contending for a title. There's a lot of room in between those two, right? Top 20 team in the NBA and top 4 team in the NBA. Like do the math on that. There's a lengthy disparity, I feel like, that the Warriors can improve upon, from where they ended the season to where they may begin next season. And it all adds up to, just what direction they look to go in terms of the aggression toward improving the roster. Now, we're already seeing the Giannis rumors again. Including the report, and I didn't see that. Did you see the aggregation? And I our guy Monty Poole. I'm not going to do Monty this way.
I did, yeah.
About the Warriors, quote, hyperventilating over the possibility of acquiring Giannis. Well, I think they've been hyperventilating over the possibility of acquiring Giannis for like 8 years. But I'm not sure if Monty, I didn't trace that one. Usually before I bring it to the table, I usually like to trace that back. Like, did Monty write it? Did he say it on a podcast? I think it was from a podcast. Did he say it in an interview? What is the deal there? But already today, there have been reports that the Warriors are hyperventilating over Giannis. I'm hyperventilating just talking about Giannis right now. On this YouTube stream. There's also the Warriors could explore trading Jimmy Butler report within the last few hours. But ultimately it boils down to, of course, you've got draft prospects galore, and we'll get into some of the potential draft prospects. We will get into some names here on this show as well. But it really comes down to now, all right, the Steve Kerr box is checked, Kyle. Now they've got the 11th overall pick. They've got a second-round pick. They've got a decision on Jimmy. They got a decision on Draymond. They've got a decision on Porzingis. How creative can they get? And are they now, by virtue of some of these conversations they've had with Steve Kerr in, dealing with negotiating whether or not he's going to return or not, are they comfortable enough and on the same page to where they can, if it's not Giannis, if it's not Kawhi, if it's not LeBron, still be aggressive in looking to improve this roster off of where they ultimately finish the season, which is not anywhere near good enough for anybody's liking.
Well, I mean, also, are they aligned in the thinking of, hey, maybe we do sign and trade Porzingis? Hey, maybe we do trade our number 11 pick, or maybe we keep it. What happens with I do think that what will end up happening with Draymond is now that Steve Kerr's back, he'll come back, but I think he comes back at a lower number and get some flexibility with the salaries and whatnot there. But what happens with Draymond, and I think they've had some of these conversations already, but I think there had to be some alignment there in order for Kerr to return in terms of the outlook of how the team for the next year or two will look.
It's just Dubs. It's JD. It's Kyle Har. It's a bunch of our faves as they find out we're going live. They get we're really testing who gets the notifications when we go live. And of course, it's Joe Schmo. Of course, it's Clem Ackers. Oh hey, we love that. Wayne Mulholland. Good evening, JD and Kyle. What's going on, Wayne? Good to be with you. Andis. Of course, Andis was going to be here. What's up, y'all? JD and Kyle. And so it is a pretty light gathering as we went relatively unannounced. That was by design, but we're trying to see exactly how many people hop on here in between, say, Dirty Work and the end of their show. Obviously, we're not going to be live on the radio during the Giants pregame, but in between Dirty Work and the Giants game, we'll get everybody out by first pitch down at Dodger Stadium as the Giants are going to go at it against the Dodgers here, opening up a road trip. But we are trying to find little ways we can go live. Estimated, what's up, Estimated? Well, great to be with y'all here. Hoping the Warriors would have gotten some Sharks lottery luck. No such luck. Yeah, the 9.4% chance or whatever it was to move up. Not meant to be, Kyle.
I was joking with someone in the studio because I think I was in that night when the NHL lottery happened. I was like, oh no, I was like, I mean, love that for the Sharks. But I was like, I think they just used up all of the Bay Area luck there.
We are live, Diggum. Yes, Diggum. We are live, my friend. And great to see Diggum in the chat here after meeting Diggum the last time we were on back in Phoenix there on the night that the Warriors were eliminated. So yeah, what's up, everybody? We are live here. Apollo Cruz wants to talk baseball. Firebuster for benching Bryce. We got a whole lot of daytime programming to talk about that tomorrow. We'll see what happens with the Giants as they play the Dodgers. But yeah. You can count me among if you're going to bring them up, you might as well freaking play them. But we'll talk about that tomorrow at 10 a.m. On the Sports Leader, as I'll be in studio again with my guy Greg Silver. And Andis, just like the Kerr signing, show came out of nowhere. Yeah, we were trying to get this show in yesterday, and it just wasn't going to work due to you had some Mother's Day commitments out at the ball game, actually. I had some Mother's Day commitments and ended up out at the Valkyries game last night. Big win for the Valkyries.
Yeah, they look good
in their home opener. So yeah, we just wouldn't you know that it would be after weeks of nothing happening, then everything would happen at once with Steve comes back. Steve comes back. Lottery, Mother's Day. We got
Bailey gets traded. Bailey gets option. Logan Webb to the IL.
Nothing and then everything all at once. Nothing and then everything all at once. So give our guy Greg Silver a break. He's talking about Adam Silver. Never mind. Sorry, Diggum. I thought that was a Greg Silver reference. My bad. That's an Adam Silver reference. My bad. I thought it was a Greg. Give our guy, as in you knew Silver was going to big time us and not come on the show. But I gave Silver I was giving Greg Silver a breather. I thought about inviting him on the show, and I thought, yeah, you know what? He's got enough of me 10-2 right now. Like, let's just, Fozzie, it's just Dubs on I messed up. Sorry. Put that one back up. I screwed up. I accidental click there. Wait, what the is this? Just Dubs on a Monday? Yeah, just Dubs on a Monday. We're not going to call it Dubs OT because there was no game. So it's like, what do we call it? Are we going to call it just Dubs, Dubs OT? We're going to call it just Dubs. Even yes on a Monday here, and even stream only. We promised you last year we were going to go live when big news broke. And then there was no big news. There wasn't one day from May 14th when the Warriors were eliminated until training camp started in October. We went 4.5 months without any reason to go live or to do a show or a podcast or anything. It was just underwhelming offers for Kuminga. They're not going to trade Kuminga. The Kings want Kuminga. They're not trading Kuminga.
Handshake agreements with Horford and Seth Curry.
Is Horford going to retire? Is Horford going to sign with the Warriors? Did Horford sign with the Warriors? No, it's but yes. So nothing happened. So we swore we took a blood vow the day after the season ended, Kyle, that we were going to go live when shit broke, and then the first day shit breaks is when 500 other things happen and it's Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And Kyle's with his mom at the 5.5 hour Giants game or whatever it was on Sunday.
Yeah, we did end up leaving
the longest Giants game in 7 years. The longest Giants game since before COVID. And
right. Well, I was just about to say it went a nine inning game before the pitch clock. Shout out the pitch clock.
Yeah, shout out pitch clock. They might still be playing right now if they didn't have the pitch clock and didn't have the new extra inning rules. They might.
Yeah.
They might have had to have delayed the series between the Giants and the Dodgers because the Giants and the Pirates still had business to tend to out at Oracle Park. But it's great to see people filing in here on Just Dubs. So yeah, Steve Kerr comes back. Is anybody disappointed about that? Anybody disappointed in the chat about Steve Kerr coming back? I mean, realistically, come on. It good for everybody. Nobody needed to worry about the Tony Vitello of NBA hires being the Warriors move. And no shade at Tony V. I'm not, again, that's not where I was going, but it's just the Warriors don't need that issue right now.
Well, the whole Todd Golden rumor was kind of funny. I was I don't really see that.
Maybe in 3 years when Steph's gone, maybe in 2 years when Steph's gone. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I think you could maybe see it. But yes, it is Just Dubs here on a Monday. Can I ask a question? Here says Robbie Bautista. Of course you can. It's why we're here is to ask questions. If and only if. Would the Warriors give up the 11th pick for the Hornets' 14th and 18th picks? Would you go for it? More picks? I don't know. Although it is a deep draft, I don't think that the Hornets would, to move up to 11. I mean, the Hornets would have to really love somebody to want to move up to 11, number one. But I think giving up 14 and 18 is probably too much to move up to number. That would be too much to move to 11. So I think I probably would do that on value, but isn't that asking price a little high? You're going to you're going to go back to 14, but also get 18 to go back 3 spots. That feels like something that could get done with a second round pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was also going to say, I think on the Warriors side, having 2 first round picks and maybe trying to integrate both those guys into next season in their rookie year it actually might bode well in the first half of the season while Jimmy and Moody are out, but I don't know how that would bode for the whole season.
It does lead us to one of the big questions, which is what do the Warriors do at 11? And it didn't end up being top 4. It ended up being the chalk. It ended up being exactly where it was 2 slot right? They end up with the slot that they were pegged to get, which is fine. Like, I don't think anybody should necessarily be complaining about that. But it is interesting because one of the things that struck me over the weekend was the reports. Did you see the reports that, hey, the Warriors, if it's top four, they'd be inclined to move it? And I had thought of it the other way. I had thought of it as, hey, if it's top four, maybe you got to keep it, versus 11, even though maybe you're more likely to get a player that could help in the short term. With the 11th pick, you'd be more apt to I would be more apt to move the 11th pick, but maybe the Warriors looking at it a little differently had they landed in the top four, in that you could get a better player potentially as a veteran if it's for a top four pick, versus the 11th pick, where maybe with that pick, you'd be getting a veteran version of a similar talent level projected player, unless somebody's really in love with somebody else at that number 11 pick.
Well, I think what was interesting, and there were a few names that were flown out in terms of rumor wise, if the Warriors did land inside the top four, and one of those names was a favorite of the show, Trey Murphy. And I thought about that. I was like, that does feel like a lot to give. Like in maybe a different draft. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you could have the freaking fourth pick, but I think it would have to be for someone that maybe pushes you into a top 4 seed, top 6 seed, definitely top 4 seed in the West.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm looking at a bunch of mock drafts, and we're going to get into some names for sure. And again, this is by no means going to be the end all be all in terms of specific names. I mean, we got 6 weeks basically. The draft is 6 weeks from tomorrow, the first round of the draft. So the Warriors will be on the clock 6 weeks from tomorrow at number 11. There are going to be rumors galore as to what the Warriors would or wouldn't do. I feel like with the 11th pick between now and then, and we're going to run the gamut through all the different players that potentially could be on the table here for the Warriors. But now that Steve Kerr is back, now that we know the Warriors are going to have the 11th pick in the draft coming up 6 weeks from tomorrow, we can start to dive into some of the players that potentially could be there for Golden State. And we'll do that here as well. We'll probably go about another 25 minutes. We are going to keep it short and sweet. And we do appreciate everybody who has hopped in and joined the conversation here on this Monday. I would say no, I don't think the Warriors would be looking for more picks. But if they keep the pick, I will say this, if they keep the 11th pick, it has to be somebody that's not a project. It has to be somebody that can come in and, best player available, of course, but best player available that can come in and make an impact immediately for this Warriors team next year, because they're going to have a bunch of different things that they're going to look to have to do once they get, to the draft, through the draft, free agency, and again, exploring a lot of the trade options. Realistically, Steve's 700 chiming in, what roster move do they make and when? Well, it's a great question. And I think, the next thing that will happen is the draft on the calendar. Literally, it is the next thing. The draft is, but it's all going to come rapid fire, because the draft is 6 weeks from tomorrow and free agency is 7 weeks from tomorrow. So it's all kind of tied into one. And a lot of once you get really through the second round of the playoffs, so we're almost through the second round of the playoffs, and you get into the conference finals, that's when teams and agents are not supposed to be contacting each other, because the legal tampering period doesn't begin until June 30th. But the league starts to get an idea of where you can acquire, what the interest level in certain players is going to be and who's going to be headed where and those kinds of things. So a lot of the due diligence, so everything can be announced at 3:01 Pacific time on June 30th, a week after the draft, can be fit into a television special. So there's going to be a lot of the illegal tampering going on over the course of the next 6-7 weeks, but things are going to be put in motion during that time and then start to happen here in that week after the draft, honestly, which leads up to the trade deadline. And really it's really about 7 to 10 days after that. So it's through what would be that 4th of July weekend and around that 4th of July weekend. And then a little bit into that following week, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, really probably all the way through maybe the 10th. There's about a 10-day window where a majority of everything happens, and there will be trades that surprised you. There will be, free agent signings that will surprise you. So realistically, what roster move do they make? I think it's going to be interesting. What happens with Draymond Green is going to be a big part of the equation. I think first and foremost, does he opt in at $27 million? And I think if he opts in at $27 million, the Warriors are trading him.
Oh, yeah.
But as we've talked about a ton on Dubs OT, Kyle, if you have the conversation with Draymond and you basically say, look, dude, you need to help us out. And if you help us out and reduce that salary over the next few years, drop it down, stretch it out, then we'll keep you around if you truly want to be here. If you opt in, then we're going to probably put you with another salary and move that salary. And then you start looking around at what the potential options for players could be beyond that point. But it boils down to, if the Warriors are going to make any significant move involving a lot of salary, it would have to involve either Draymond being part of it, in addition to Moody and picks, or it would be Jimmy Butler's expiring contract as an injured player, plus picks for a player that's making in that north of 50, close to $60 million range.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think going back to Draymond, because it is interesting, his $27 million super tradable contract, and that would be, if he opts in, it would be on an expiring deal too. The contract would expire after next season. So I think if I were Draymond, I think I would know what I would do with Steve Kerr returning. And then regarding Jimmy, yeah, I mean, it's just like, well, what can you really get for a superstar who's coming off a torn ACL, right?
Exactly. And that becomes the question. And again, I do expect the Warriors, when you start getting to names, I know we poo-pooed it earlier, but I do think it's going to be Giannis. You've heard a lot about Kawhi. And again, I don't mean they're going to get him, but I mean in terms of you got to go through the same sort of checklist that we've maligned the Warriors for going. It's going to be Giannis first, and then it's going to be Kawhi, and then it's going to be LeBron, and nobody really thinks that any of those have a legitimate shot to happen. And then at that point, I think that's when the Warriors truly start to become tested as to, are there some other names that they're more willing to get creative on? And that's where I think it relates back to Kerr. Are there players that Steve Kerr would have been out on coaching that now he would be more open-minded on coaching if the Warriors could acquire those players based on the conversations that were had in the determining process as to whether or not, Kerr was going to be coming back to the Warriors? Like that's where I think, guys that previously you would not have believed to be fits for the Warriors overall in years past, the guards that are more, guards that look to score. Yes, Klay Thompson was the 11th pick. The 11th pick in 2011, number 11, Klay Thompson. That's right. He absolutely was. So you can get a good player. You can get a good player at number 11 overall, as Wayne chimes in and says, can get a real good player at number 11 overall. And we've talked about on the Papa and Silver show. I mean, Halliburton, I think, was 12, and SGA was in that range, and Giannis, I think, was 13 or 14. There have been a bunch of players.
Yeah, Trey Murphy back in the day.
Donovan Mitchell. There have been a lot of players that have been kind of in that range that the Warriors could look to potentially get. Dig'em, the bigger question is, will the pick even get to play? Well, the pick has to be able to play. Otherwise, it's a bad pick. I mean, I'm just going to say that straight up. If the pick can't play, then it's a bad pick because the pick has to be. This cannot be somebody that's stashed for the future. That should not even be on the table one iota, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I kind of want to dive into the names and the name I think at the top of our list at 11 and a lot of fans list at 11 is Yaxel Lendenborg, the 6'9" forward, the wing from Michigan, and I think that to me that's the one player where I wouldn't necessarily want to trade the draft pick for. I mean, again, it depends on the player you're getting back, but I think he's a player that checks a lot of boxes. He's a wing first and foremost, and the Warriors are lack thereof with Moody and Jimmy out, and then he's an older player and he's refined, so he doesn't need as much development. So I think he's at the top of the list. But let's say he gets drafted before 11, then it's kind of like, well, who do you pick from there? And Dalton Johnson laid out a few good prospects that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, and I want to make sure I still have the screen here. Did I X out of the screen? Yeah, Lendenborg, older player, as you mentioned. He is. I'm looking at the NBA draft.net profile here, and there's a bunch of different mock drafts, but I'm just looking at this as an example. They have him, 6'8", with a 7'4" wingspan. Front court prospect, versatility, and feel. Like, he, to me, would be a home run in terms of ability to fit into the Warrior system. Maybe not as significant an upside, but we've talked about the fact how so often a lot of these guys who haven't necessarily had the extreme ceiling have wound up being the players that end up having the highest ceiling, right? The Halliburtons, some of those guys, the Wagners, like some of those guys that you think have higher floors, lower ceilings, or at least higher floors, have wound up being the higher ceiling type players. So we got one vote for Yaxel from Estimated Eyes. So we kind of start with him, but yeah, versatile front court player, real good feel for the game. He was at the college rank, he was a 36% 3-point shooter. Again, that's going to be a longer three, obviously, in the NBA. But this is, we're talking about a guy who's 50. He does a little bit of everything, right? He can rebound. He basically a 15, 9, and 3 guy at the forward position, and sort of a jack of all trades, but again, 6'9", 240, and somebody that has the ability to do a lot of different things. So he's intriguing, although many believe that he would be gone when you look at where everything shook out with the Wizards getting the number 1 pick, and then Utah, Memphis, Chicago, the Clippers, Brooklyn, Sacramento, who's probably going to wind up taking a point guard. Then you've got the Hawks, who own the Pelicans pick. What do they eventually do? And then you start to get into the guys that I think could be around. Anyone, Braden Burries from Arizona is another player that I think would fit the Warriors level of skill set, right? And somebody that could come in and be more of a player that could be a part of a team immediately and play even as a rookie. I think Lendenborg projects to be that kind of a player. LeBaron Philon from Alabama, I feel like, has got the length and the skill and the shooting ability and the athleticism as a 6'4" guard. Even I think he's listed at about 185. He's somebody that I think you really like. At least I would. The one guy that I'm throwing out of the equation that I think we're going to hear a lot about, and I've mentioned his name on the Pop and Silver show, is Nate Ament from Tennessee. He is the most wing project. I'm not going to call him Kuminga, but because we don't.
That's Kawakami's guy.
Well, Kawakami's guy was also Kuminga back in the day, back in 2021. He loved Kuminga. And that's fine. A lot of people did. I mean, I go back to the night Kuminga was drafted.
I like Kuminga. Yeah.
I mean, there was a thought that he was a top 3 talent that fell all the way to 7. Like, that was the thought in the moment. Now, obviously, we didn't know some of the issues and, some of the issues with the opinion he had of his game compared to where he really was. And those guys, like, to me, those are the things. Like, a project is not the end of the world if that project understands that he's got to work a certain way to develop. And Kuminga, after really the first year or two, just got so frustrated with the whole process that it just wasn't necessarily gonna work. But Ament is the one guy, when you look at Diggum, the bigger question is, will the pick even get to play? That's one where I'm not saying if you think a guy is supremely talented that you go away from him, but Ament is the kind of guy that feels like he would be the project and not necessarily the system fit, given what we know about the system fits over the last 5 years of Steve Kerr coaching this team in that, 2 timeline sort of era.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten a sense of, someone like a Guy Santos who kind of has an all-around feel for each aspect of the game. Is going to fit better than a athletic freak like Kuminga, who maybe doesn't have that same feel. But here's an interesting note that Don Johnson put when he listed his 5 prospects to kind of monitor at the 11th pick. So Ament had 11 games of at least 20 points, right? And 12 games of not making any of his 3-point shots. So it feels like another Kuminga.
Yeah, that's not the guy. And for me, that's not the guy. And again, when you start to look at some of these other names, and you're beholden to who's there. I mean, if Burries is gone and Lindenberg is gone, and you look at somebody like Philon potentially who's gone, I think then that becomes another potential question mark. Kareem Lopez is another one that we've seen. The guy from New Zealand, the forward. I mean, he is another one that you've seen linked to the Warriors, and I'm not sure his skill set is necessarily aligned with the what the Warriors would need, and the ability to, not necessarily a true playmaker, not necessarily a shooter, does a bunch of stuff like that. That's another one that I would say doesn't strike my fancy. And again, if you can't get one of these guys, I think that's where you look to maybe say, okay, we're going to try to make a trade if you're the Warriors and get off of that pick and see if you can't get, some level of a veteran player that you potentially want to throw into the mix.
I mean, how much are you looking into positional fit? Because I mean, obviously the Warriors going into the draft, and if they were to keep the pick, like, it feels like they have to draft a wing or a combo guard. But I will say that I think combo guard becomes a bigger need if they can't re-sign D'Anthony Melton. So where would how much value would you put into the position that the player plays?
In a perfect world, I think it would be a wing player that could play make and hit some shots. But I don't think the Warriors can necessarily pick based on positional need. I think they have to take the most ready to play player, whether it's a guard or in a perfect world, it would be a forward. I don't think they need a big. I think they need a forward. And again, maybe they do wind up needing a big if Horford retires and Kristaps Porzingis ultimately doesn't come back. And then, maybe it winds up being a different conversation at that point. But I think right now, at least going into it, in a perfect world, I think it would be a wing. It would be a 6'7", 6'8" guy. But again, it has to be a 6'7", 6'8" guy that has some tangible skills and the ability to play immediately to where he's not going to be a project player. And so I think that has to be factored into this thing as well. Another guard. That's the one downside on somebody like maybe a Phylon, who I like, compared to, but you can't just take a wing and then have that wing not play, because I think when you look at roster composition, and there was a report over the weekend, the Warriors are going to be interested in Royce O'Neal, which I kind of laughed at that. I'm thinking, well, you could have had Royce O'Neal in a Kuminga deal, and they didn't want to do that. But now you want to look at Royce O'Neal, as Royce O'Neal's burying threes in the elimination play-in game. I remember saying to you, you could have had Royce O'Neal, but you didn't. You thought it was disrespectful to trade Jonathan Kuminga for Royce O'Neal, way back when. So I found that interesting that there was some thought. And of course, Kawhi's name has surfaced. There was one more name. I was about to say,
who
was the other name? I forgot.
There was another name to go along with Royce O'Neal, but he was better than Royce O'Neal.
We'll see here. I was going to look it up. Let's see. Royce O'Neal, Warriors interested in, and I'm looking. Yeah, veteran Royce O'Neal. Derek White.
Derek White.
Yeah, Derek White. Well, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't be interested in Derek White? I mean, that's
Derek White.
I mean, Derek White's a good player. Now, Royce O'Neal makes more sense. Derek White's like, the whole freaking league's interested in Derek White. Like,
yeah,
like that's why I kind of I remember now I kind of dismissed it. Like, well, yeah, the Warriors and 25 other teams are going to be interested in Derek White.
Derek White is the ultimate plug and play on any of the 30 team kind of play.
No doubt. No doubt. So, again, that's the thing. And I think, the big questions again now that Steve is going to come back is, are the Warriors going to be more willing to go all in on the now versus, trying to split the difference, which I think is what they had been willing to do, or at least, trying to do so often in the past, even if it means maybe not being able to compete for a championship. Is there that level of, hey, if you're Steve, the organization's saying, well, we want you to be committed, Steve. And Steve's saying, well, I want you guys to be committed to the now, and not, telling me that I got to develop these project players. And if I got to develop these project players, that's fine. But then don't tell me that we're also equally going to be contending. So I think that's sort of what, where I would go with it. But yeah, that's my early read. My early read on some of these guys. I like Braden Burries. Will he be there? I think there's a debate as to whether he will, because I'm looking at a lot more of the mock drafts that I've looked at in the last 24 hours. Have Burries going in the top 10, have Lindeberg going in the top 10, basically have, a lot of the other guys, Keaton Wagler from Illinois, Aka, Flemings, like all those guys are like top 7, forget about it. But now it's starting to look more and more like, the Michael Browns, the Braden Burries, the Lindebergs. And so it gets into a maybe Phylon is there, maybe not. Is it a Hans Steinbach? Is he around? Is it a Kareem Lopez from New Zealand? Is it an Ament? And if it's, and honestly, if it's any of those guys, I think I'm looking to trade the pick. If it's any of those guys, I'm looking to trade the pick. If it's Lindeberg or Burries or, somebody like a Phylon, then I'm thinking I'm more inclined to potentially keep the pick. And look, we all know what the real answer is, right? The real answer, Kyle, is you look at Oklahoma City at number 12.
Yeah.
And they're picking after the Warriors. Here's what you do. You find out, you get your intel on who the Thunder want, and you pick that guy.
But you don't sign you don't sign their G League players. I don't think that's what you do.
But if they want Ament, then you have to understand that they can redshirt Ament for a couple of years and you can't. And so you have to figure out a means. You have to figure out a means to roll with it. From that point. Perry Olson, our guy's got jokes. Perry Olson, hey JD, take a breath.
It's pretty good.
You know what that's all about? Did you?
Yeah, I was tuning in.
Yeah, our guy. I went in on our guy Dino.
Also caught the little Walt had to do the little good old dump button.
Yeah. That not because of me though. That was not. Not because of me. But yeah, our guys got jokes as far as that. Robbie Bautista, if the Warriors can't evolve, how will they be playing next season? No roster changes. I wonder how they can face the Wizards with AD, their pick, Trey. Yeah, the Wizards had a real nice afternoon on paper yesterday as well. And yeah, the 37 is underwhelming, I think, to be sure. Estimated eyes, do we even know if Moody can come back? We don't at this point. I think you have to go best and most capable player of being able to play now if you're the Warriors, if you keep the 11th pick. I've got my list of guys it would be worth it for. That will continue to evolve here as we move forward. The one thing that I feel like the Warriors are going to need 2 vet minimum, and maybe it winds up being a non-taxpayer mid-level type of a player also, but depending upon who's available, and I'm not necessarily saying Kawhi, but it could be somebody else, could be a Royce O'Neal type, but in that range eventually. They're going to need, I think, 2 veteran minimum wings because Jimmy's not going to be on the team because they're going to trade him, or not going to be coming back till the middle of the year, final third of the year. Same thing with Moody. You have to plan as if he's going to be middle of the year or final third of the year. So I think you're going to have to go like, Derek Jones Jr., a few years back when he was somebody that was, signed to a vet minimum deal. You're going to have to kind of go to I hate to call it the scrap heap, but you're going to have to go to you're going to have to go to the group of players that may not have a lot of options, but have some athleticism and, kind of that 3-and-D wing type to help absorb some of the minutes that you're going to have available due to injury. The draft pick could be one of those guys.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to have to sign a couple of those guys, one vet min, one with your, non-taxpayer mid-level. We'll see what kind of player, but that is an area by which I think they really need to look to fill out this roster.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy who should be playing meaningful minutes, who was healthy at the end of last season and played the wing was Guy Santos. So they have one guy out of 4 or 5 that you need to be a competitive basketball team. I mean, hell, we were throwing out what? We had Nate Williams. I mean, shout out Nate Williams. Drops an all-time soundbite, Nate Williams. Malevi Leones, of course. Am I missing anyone else? I mean, it was literally like Guy Santos and guys that we signed off of G League squads.
Yeah, no, I think it's Guy Santos is the only wing right now that I think is truly playable and healthy. I think that's where it is. So, yeah. It just so they need the draft pick. They need a free agent. They need a trade. They need to look to roll. I think with it that way in a big time way. And then what do they ultimately do with Jimmy? Are they going to be more willing to move Jimmy than they've been? I keep kind of wondering if they are going to go big game hunting, and a lot of people are reporting that here. How exactly are they planning on doing it if they're intent on keeping Jimmy? That's the part, because you still need some level of salary matching. And if it's not Jimmy, obviously it has to be Draymond. And are you going to include picks into the equation? And would anybody want that contract if you're not attaching picks to it? I mean, all of those things I think are going to be important here as we kind of wrap things up in the final two minutes or so here on our Just Dub special. Steve Kerr is back. Warriors get the 11th pick edition. Some final thoughts, Kyle.
I mean, kind of an anticlimactic lottery. I kind of forget that it goes so fast. They do the reveal pretty quick. But
once they get to the reveal goes quick. They take a minute to get to the reveal, though.
Right? Yeah, they do their little pregame show. But man, you had to pour one out for the Kings. JD, maybe you don't feel as bad, but I had a buddy who went to a Kings draft party. All for the Kings.
Oh man, I know.
Fall to 7.
I know a bunch of people that were at a Kings draft party. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like if you're at a draft party, you're a bad franchise.
I said, well, hey, the Warriors made hay out of lottery parties for a long time. The Warriors had a lot of lottery parties, Kyle. You may be too young to remember that. You may be new here.
I know. I am new. I only reap the benefits.
If you were about halfway between like your age and my age, it was all lottery party. It was all lottery party for about 20 years. It was all lottery party. So. We appreciate everybody. Let's go ahead and call it on that note here. We'll let everybody get off into watching a little Giants baseball, but let us know in the chat, in the comments on social media at JD John Dickinson as well, what you want to hear more on here in the offseason. As news breaks, I think we'll probably go live again, Kyle, at some point. I know there's supposed to be a press conference with Steve Kerr coming back and Mike Dunleavy. They did not have their season-ending press conference because we didn't know if Steve was going to be back, and Dunleavy wanted to wait until that was determined either way. So I know everybody's at the pre-draft, the combine, basically, that's going on in Chicago. That's why the lottery was at Navy Pier in Chicago yesterday. So we're going to see once everybody comes back from that when they get the press conference going. And so we'll probably do something after they have that press conference and react to some of the sound and some of the talking points coming off of that. We'll continue to get into every rumor. We'll make a nice fat list of all the rumors and we'll keep everybody apprised and more draft profiles. And we'll also maybe try to have some guests on that know more about the draft than either of us do. To talk about who the Warriors could potentially pick. So, Kyle, appreciate you, my man. We'll talk again soon. Appreciate everybody who joined us for this impromptu edition of Just Dubs. Again, like and subscribe and keep your notifications on for when we go live. Check out at JD John Dickinson on X and at KMBR. On X as well. Get those notifications on. You'll know when we go live and you can jump in and join the conversation with us. Truly, one for the, I'm not going to say the sickos because we're into off-season mode now and there's a lot to discuss. So for Kyle, I'm JD. We'll talk to you soon right here for the Sports Leader.